In the quiet suburban enclave of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and picket fences defined the neighborhood's charm, a silent war was brewing. At the heart of it was Karen Whitaker, the self-appointed guardian of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association. Karen was a force of nature. Her clipboard was her scepter, her bi-weekly newsletters the law of the land. She patrolled the streets with the vigilance of a hawk, noting every untrimmed hedge and every car parked an inch too close to a driveway. But her latest crusade wasn't about grass length or mailbox uniformity. It was about my water tank, my name is Ethan Caldwell, a mechanical engineer who'd moved to Willow Creek 3 years ago for a quieter life. My property sat at the edge of the neighborhood, a modest 2-story house with a large backyard that housed an industrial-sized water tank. The tank wasn't just for my use. It was a private well system I'd installed, connected to a municipal agreement that supplied water to the entire street. The deal was simple. I maintained the tank, and the HOA paid a small fee to cover costs. It was a win-win, or so I thought. Karen, however, had other ideas. She'd decided the tank was an eyesore, a monstrosity that lowered property values. Never mind that it was tucked behind a row of evergreens, barely visible from the street. She'd send me letters, citing vague HOA bylaws about unsightly structures. When I explained the tank's purpose, that it fed her street's water supply, she dismissed it as exaggeration. Then, one sweltering July morning, I caught her in the act. I'd woken up to the sound of a metallic clank from my backyard. Peering through my kitchen window, I saw Karen, dressed in her signature pastel cardigan, fiddling with the tank's valve. A hose snaked from the tank to a truck parked on the street, its bed lined with water barrels. She was draining it. My first instinct was to storm out and confront her, but something told me to hold back. Karen wasn't just being petty. She was clueless about the consequences. I grabbed my phone and started recording. Sure enough, she twisted the valve and water gushed into the hose. Her smug expression was unmistakable as she muttered something about teaching me a lesson. By the time she'd filled half a dozen barrels, my tank's gauge was dipping. Dangerously low. I stepped outside, keeping my voice calm. "Karen, you know that tank supplies your house too, right?" She froze, her hand still on the valve, then scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Ethan. This is about community standards. You can't just hoard water like some prepper." I pointed to the municipal pipe connected to the tank, clearly labeled with the street's water line. Her eyes narrowed, but she didn't stop. "I'll have this reported to the city," she snapped, then stormed off, leaving the hose running. That night I checked the tank's levels. It was at 20% capacity, enough for a day, maybe 2, before the street's water supply would run dry. I could have fixed it myself, refilled it from the backup well, but an idea struck me. Karen needed to learn a lesson, not just about my tank, but about the consequences of her meddling. I decided to let nature take its course. The next morning, the complaints started rolling in. My neighbor, Mr. Jenkins, called first. "Ethan, my shower's barely a trickle. Something wrong with the tank?" I explained the situation, leaving out Karen's name for now. By noon, the Willow Creek community chat was ablaze. "No water for dishes. My sprinklers are spitting air." Karen, predictably, posted a lengthy message blaming me for neglecting the tank. She even scheduled an emergency HOA meeting for that evening. I showed up to the meeting armed with evidence. The community center was packed, with residents clutching empty water bottles and glaring at me. Karen stood at the podium, her clipboard in hand, ready to crucify me. "Ethan Caldwell has failed to maintain the water tank, endangering our community," she declared. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I raised my hand, calm as ever, and asked to speak. "Folks, I've got something to show you," I said, connecting my phone to the projector. The video of Karen draining the tank played in crisp detail. Gasps filled the room as her pastel-clad figure filled barrels while muttering about teaching me a lesson. I followed with a quick explanation of the tank's role, showing the municipal contract and the pipe schematics. "That tank isn't just mine," I said. "It's yours, and Karen's been draining it." The room erupted. Karen's face turned the color of her cardigan as residents shouted questions. "Why would you do that? Do you know how much we rely on that water?" she stammered, claiming she was testing the system for leaks. It was a weak excuse and no one bought it. Mr. Jenkins, a retired plumber, stood up. "Lady, you've been messing with our water for weeks. I've seen that truck before." That's when the real bombshell dropped. Jenkins revealed he'd spotted Karen's truck siphoning water multiple times, not just yesterday. She'd been selling it to a landscaping company, pocketing the cash while blaming me for the tank's low levels. The crowd turned on her, demanding answers. Karen tried to deflect, citing her dedication to the HOA, but the evidence was damning. I stepped in before things got too heated. "Look, I'm not here to start a witch hunt. I just want the tank fixed and the street's water restored. I'll cover the costs to refill it, but I need assurances this won't happen again." The residents agreed, and a motion was passed to remove Karen from her HOA presidency. She left the meeting in tears, her clipboard abandoned on the podium. Over. The next few days, I worked with Jenkins to restore the tank. We upgraded the valve with a lock, ensuring no one could tamper with it again. The city sent an inspector to verify the system, and they commended my setup, even offering to expand the municipal contract. The street's water was back by the weekend, and the neighborhood threw a small barbecue to celebrate. Karen's house was conspicuously quiet, her car absent from the driveway. A week later, I got a letter from her lawyer, claiming I'd defamed her by showing the video. I forwarded it to the city, along with my footage and Jenkins' testimony. The case was dropped within days, and Karen moved out by the end of the month. Rumor had it she'd relocated to a condo downtown, far from any HOAs she could terrorize. Willow Creek hasn't been the same since. The new HOA president, a laid-back retiree named Linda, focuses on community events rather than petty enforcement. My tank's still there, humming quietly behind the evergreens, keeping the street's water flowing. Every now and then someone will jokingly ask if Karen's coming back to drain it. We laugh, but I keep the valve's lock code to myself, just in case. In the end, it wasn't just about the water. It was about trust, community, and the consequences of one person's crusade going too far. Karen thought she was protecting Willow Creek, but she nearly ran it dry. And me? I'm just happy to sip my coffee in peace, knowing the tank and the neighborhood are safe for now.